Is this recording? I can't tell if this is recording. If only I had someone like Ryan Tracy here to tell me how to do this.
Ask and you shall receive, my friend.
It's like a miracle took place. I just want to start off tonight, and I know you're the man. You are in charge. I am not able to do things. I'm just not. I can talk about Chiefs football. I can answer questions on this. I had a great time talking with everyone. But in terms of figuring out what in the world I'm doing, it's just like, I can't even imagine what it looked like on recording, because it must have looked like the first 5 minutes to be like,
Huh.
No, I don't think.
That thing.
Yeah, no, I look like I'm 1,000 years old person seeing a car go by and thinking that the gods have landed. And so it is good to see you, my friend, back from vacation, looking pale and tan.
Pale and tan all at the same time? Yes.
Yes.
I'm a ginger, folks, so we use sunscreen because it would either be all my freckles have combined or I'm burnt to a crisp. So those are my only two options. So, Seth, you did a great job. I know it's frustrating, the tech and all that stuff, but once you got rolling, you were on fire, and I appreciate you doing it, folks. I know you guys had a good time. So give Seth a hand, will you? Hit him in the comments.
Oh, yes,
too.
yes. Thank you very much. Yes. Good times when you party hard.
So I haven't taken a vacation in 2 years. But the thing is like between the anniversary of my wife's birthday and another family thing, we always have something in the fall during the season. So I always miss at least one game.
Oh, sure.
So having you be able to hold down the fort while I was gone was a big change, and I appreciate it.
Well, hey, I only do what I can do when I can do it.
Right.
And the Rogues were awesome. They had a bunch of great questions. I had like all these talking points written out beforehand, and they had so many good questions that I was just like, I'm just going to roll with it. It was awesome.
Right. Q&A it makes things easy. California Chief, thank you very much. Don't be late. You're right if you are, but you ain't. So hey.
And I got some red on.
Questions? Oh yeah, let's hold on.
Got the red.
There we go.
We're wearing red.
Little magenta goes a long way.
Wearing red. I've got my Carmex. That's red.
Sweet.
No buy drink tonight. I don't want to freak anyone out, but I didn't have time to go get it.
Aww.
I know. You're not going to believe this, but recording times ours took more time than we thought it would.
Yeah.
Josh and I and Nate are usually so brief and taciturn. But this particular time, I don't know. None of us would shut up.
Evidently, I've missed something. I always thought those were 3-hour sessions. You guys just edited it down to an hour.
Well, look, you're half right, to be perfectly honest.
Well, why don't we do a couple questions? There's a couple super chats, and folks, thank you for the support. And then we'll get into your latest one, okay?
There's also something that I see here. People think your mic is off, Ryan.
Oh, really? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but they feel like your noise gate is on. They think you sound bad. Has it occurred to any of you that maybe I just sound really good?
Yeah,
and
let's go with that.
In comparison, Ryan just sounds bad. I don't understand how no one considered that. And I'm hurt. And I'm willing to tolerate it. I think you sound terrific, my friend.
Okay. Does this sound any different to you? I'll take the automatic gate off.
It doesn't sound any different to me.
Okay. Folks, let us know if that continues. I'll try to just keep my face in the microphone like I should. I'm semi-professional. I should know better than this. So I will try to get to that.
I think you're very, very professional, my friend. But I'm ready, man. Let's talk some Chiefs. They won a game.
What an idea.
I knew, if you just not turn the ball over, turns out good things can happen. Oh, boy, this is going to be fun.
You and Andy Reid, folks. Judge, thank you for your support, folks. If you want to support the channel, this is a really easy way to do it. Just click that super chat icon in the chat. Super fun and easy. The other ways to join us, if you want to become a member of the channel, you get all kinds of extras. You get extra podcasts. You get me ranting and actually talking the language that I use when I'm not in public, which means I cuss a lot on the member videos. You get all kinds of little things. You get some discount codes to the merch, which you can buy in the store as well. And all you got to do is click the button, that way over by Seth, it says join. And if you do, join that rookie level or above, you get into the Discord as well. That's just for our members. And it's a nice server that is just for them. Talk amongst yourselves all the time. Holly, all of the crew members are in there, including Stevie, Gooch, Aaron, of course, Jeff, and Dan and myself. I'm trying to get Seth in there, but we talked about the tech thing, remember? So
I am trying. It's just, how do I say this in a way that's accurate? I'm not smart. Would be the way to say it. I will say I'm a little hurt. We've been recording for like almost 8 minutes now, and you haven't noticed I've lost a little weight.
Oh, I thought it was just my eyes. Well done. Black is very slimming, but no, good for you. Have you changed something in your life?
I cut out sugar, and then I had a cheat day, and now I'm cutting out sugar and carbs, which kill me.
I was gonna say you're going keto full on.
Do you have any idea? Now, like, I'm not going full keto. I'll allow like a few carbs. And like, I can eat like a banana, and like a little bar that has like 5% of your daily value carbs. So it's not completely carb free because I don't want to lose my mind. But like, man, do you have any idea? Did you know there's a lot of carbs in pizza?
Oh, you think?
It's like completely changed my diet. But anyway, yes, that and black is slimming. Let's be honest. I mean, these are things that are true. The judge, this is a really interesting question.
Mm-hmm.
Let me answer your question with a question. If Derrick Henry doesn't go off in the fourth quarter on national television, are people really putting the over-under at this game at like 57? Like, are they expecting a run game to trade shots with a pass game? Because that's...
So you think it's just recency bias from the last ball game?
Not necessarily just recency bias, because Derrick Henry's a stud. He has been for a while. But this idea of being completely unstoppable, that's game by game. And that's the run game, depending on how impactful those yards actually are. Henry's unique in that he can be a big part of even a high-scoring offense because similarly to, like, say, Jamal Charles, although obviously very different run styles, and that's high praise because I think Jamal Charles is one of the 2 or 3 greatest runners to ever live. And I will fight to the death over that opinion. Like,
don't fight me.
Right is right. He is one of those players that, like, I swear, you just like have to sit people down and say, just watch these 10 games, just the whole games. Right. And watch how every single carry is like this. It's unbelievable. But anyway, what him and Henry had in common is that Henry can break off these big gains. Yep, it's home runs. And that's how, he got the Chiefs with one of those in the 2019 game. His top speed, he doesn't run like this crazy fast 40 time, but I bet you in like a 60 or 70 yard dash, he would beat maybe up into about 60 or 70 yard dash. He'd beat a lot of NFL players, a lot of corners, because his top speed, they can't run him down the way they would like to.
And even if they do, there's something to be said about inertia. Mass times speed, people. Mass.
Well, and people just bounce off him. So once and the way he gets tackled is affected by the fear people have of getting embarrassed. Perfectly legitimate, but that just adds further to his advantage because they're diving at his legs and he can run around it or through it. Yeah. It's just a different thing. You have to stop him early or he can rip off big gains. It's kind of similar. Like Nick Chubb is a little different than most running backs or Kareem Hunt in that regard, in that they can rip off those big gains. And so I would just say, I think Derrick Henry he's got a shot at rushing for 200 yards against the Chiefs. I would just note that he hasn't been the determining factor when the Chiefs and the Titans have played previously. Of course, the run defense is like worse than it's ever been. So, yeah. Although, I mean, maybe now that they don't have to play, cover 2 constantly because they actually have a safety who can play single high, who isn't Tyrann Mathieu, maybe that makes a big difference, much like it did against the Washington football team. Not nearly as good a runner. Don't get me wrong, but it makes a huge difference when you can do some things schematically. We finally saw it. We finally saw some of the changes we've been clamoring for. That's been nice.
Well, we've been talking about it since the damn Super Bowl, so hey. Oh, and see, I went. That's just a little taste of what I do in the members shows, folks. Let me reset this question for you real quick, because I talked about it a little bit earlier in the week on Locked on Chiefs. For me, it's over under 150 and a touchdown. That is the win-loss conversion for me. If he scores more than once, if he gets 2 touchdowns, or if he goes over 150 yards, I think it makes it a lot harder, because as much as I want to believe they're over giving the ball away, I'm not certain of that.
Oh, sure.
So for me, that's where the over-under is. Exactly. Yeah. So over-under 150-1, how do you like their odds to win?
If the Chiefs don't turn the ball over, even if he's over 150-1, I think that's a tall hill for them to climb, because I just don't see Tannehill. Eventually, if the Chiefs aren't turning the ball over and Mahomes is on, eventually Tannehill has to go shot for shot with Mahomes, which, by the way, he can do if the run game is clicking and he gets those play action looks he's looking for. He is more dependent on his run game than other quarterbacks. Their entire offense revolves around it in a lot of ways. But he's a competent quarterback. When he gets the right looks, he can sling it.
Yeah.
Please.
Can I interrupt for 1 second on a personal note?
By all means, I missed you. Go for it.
For you 13 poor souls that are in my Dynasty League, and I'm talking to you, Big Mike, Berg, Flipper, enjoy this game, because I have Mahomes and Tannehill playing this week. So, poof, good luck with that. I'm going to own this league again. And I just had to throw it out there because people have been talking trash to me while I was gone. Sorry to interrupt your flow.
No worries. Fantasy trash talk is always welcome. I really think they need Henry to break off a few big plays. More than that, they need Tannehill to be really on. And this is just it's dangerous to because we could talk about a billion things at once. I'd like to talk about that second half against Washington and what I think that portends for teams. But I would just say, I think Henry probably rushes for 150 yards against the Chiefs. I also think that Tennessee needs to hope they don't fall behind. Now, not because they can't come back with him running, because he is a threat to break off big runs. But they, like any other team, they try to keep going with the run. But once you get down by 10, like any other team, they start to they want Tannehill to and that's just not his game. He's more of a Kirk Cousins kind of quarterback, where when the pieces are in place, he can play really, really well.
Well, and he needs Jones and Brown have missed time this week in practice. So where he's going with the ball isn't quite what they'd hoped for.
Right. And Brown tweeted out he still can't keep food down. The one thing with food poisoning is, that can go away quickly. And so he might be, fine by Sunday. But sure. It'll be an interesting thing, because the Chiefs are just such a different team than they've been in years past. And that last drive against the football team, which I'm really growing. That's really growing on me, the Washington football team. Nate Taylor had the great suggestion that until they have a winning season, they're not allowed to change their name. You have to be the Washington, the kind of create a team uniforms until then.
Well, I keep mistyping it on tweets and stuff. I know you guys are really shocked that I might mistype something. But I just want their new logo to be the question mark, so that it looks like WTF instead of being WFT.
That would be amazing.
Right?
They should just change it to the Washington team of football, be the WTFs, and call it a day. But the Chiefs' final drive, where they had some short passes and they also just ground. By the way, shout out to you, Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy, for switching to more power. I understand that was probably in part because, Darrell Williams is not an outside zone running back, but neither is Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and neither is your offensive line. They should have been running 90% power all season. But shout out to Williams. He played awesome. You must have been thrilled.
I was really happy for him. Yeah.
But he runs really well in a power-based scheme, and that's what that offensive line is really good at blocking. And switching out Niang for Remmers doesn't really change that, because Remmers is more of a power guy. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's quite as good as run blocker as Niang, but he's competent at it, and he's big and strong. Mm-hmm. And that fits in. And really, it's the interior that's driving the bus with these power runs. And occasionally Orlando Brown will throw someone out of the club, which is really fun to watch. But that last drive where they even if they hadn't scored on their last drive against Washington, they had iced the game away. It was just one after another, because they can convert the easy conversions. They can run where they need to. And if it gets to third down, they have the best third down quarterback in football. And it was just interesting watching them grind that away. So I think Tennessee, their secondary is bad. They are coming off a really emotional, physical, tough Monday Night Football win. We'll see how they do, because like back to back, that's what you got to do, right? You got to be able to beat the Bills and the Chiefs back to back if you want people to say, hey, this team, there's someone. So we'll see. I don't know. But that second half against Washington, we'll see. It's one half of football, and that makes it like 3 total quarters the Chiefs have played really good football on both sides of the ball this year.
Right. Or Chiefs football.
Yes.
You know, I mean, let's put it like it is. They haven't been turning over that for a couple of years. So, Najee, good question. I get a lot of this about May. Here's the problem. I wouldn't make any trade for an offensive player at this point. There's way too much to do on defense. If you're going to shore that up, again, they didn't trust Juan Thornhill till now. They're not going to trust some new guy that walks in. Spags isn't going to do that. But if they did, they'd have to clear $10 million in cap space. As I understand, they're sitting at 2.4, and he's 10.6 against the cap this year. So
and Marcus May is an excellent player. I mean, if you add him, then you maybe go back to playing 3 safeties like 90% of the snaps.
Yeah.
And that'd be really cool, because Marcus May can do a lot of things. He's very versatile.
Yes.
But I just don't see it as a need. I think they've got a really, 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 really good. How dare you, Stevie? I think they've got a really, really, really good safety trio in Thornhill, Matthew, and Sorensen seen like 25% of the snaps. Because if you ask Sorensen to do little, he can do that and do it well. And I think they keep expanding that, because Sorensen made a couple of decent plays on Sunday and didn't get exploited.
Yep.
Big deal, big difference. And he plays like a different player too. Some of the mental errors he's been making all year, part of me wonders if that's like, okay, you know, I'm one of the guys. I'm one of the, you know, it's on me. When you're the third safety, it's like, you know, it'll probably be fine. Maybe I'll just do my job and the good things will happen.
Or maybe I'll do the stuff that I'm good at and they'll get me the hell out of the game. See, I did it again. I'm sorry, folks. I had a vacation.
Go on vacation and come back swearing like a sailor.
Dude, you should have seen me the night we first recorded. We did Locked On Chiefs 3 times because I did it after I got off the plane. It had delayed 6 hours, so I was already pissy. It was terrible. It was terrible. Thank you for that one, Stevie, and I'm glad that you're calling things out as you see them. Madman, what do you see in your draft for the Chiefs could target? I mean, there's too many to go over right now, but I'll tell you this. It's a really interesting crop of pass rushers. I'll just give you that. If you guys would check that out, it's me and Eric Crocker over on the Locked On Draft Show. It's here on YouTube as well, but it's mostly on audio because we're still getting the YouTube channel off the ground. So check that out. We have a bunch of super chats and stuff. Let me get those, and then we'll get into what we saw and what you wrote. Rasta, how are you? Damn, play in the box and crash. Juan, please play. Yeah, exactly. You are seeing exactly what we're seeing.
Sorensen should be playing downhill or in limited zone concepts.
Yes. I can have him in the hook. I can even have him, you know, from the linebacker spot in the middle zone drop. That's okay. Just can't ask him to turn and change directions. He can drop to a spot.
Yep. And even that hook, because he's been biting on everything, that's been problematic for him this year. But when his duties are limited, it's been a much different thing for him. And that was good to see, because when Sorensen is playing competently in a limited role, the Chiefs have a really, really good safety trio. And plus, because Thornhill and Matthew complement each other so well. But we'll talk about that. I know we got to do super chats.
Right. Stevie, thanks again. I'm sure Gooch will get everything fixed. DS, I want to say thank you.
Hey,
because Fiji. I am a huge fan of Fiji. We have something on the table in the next couple of years, being the wife. I would love to talk to you. If you would do that, if you would email me at that one spot where the stuff goes with the things right here, I would love to talk to you about the place that you live and what I'm thinking about doing. We might have to do a remote Chiefs thing from there, is what I'm thinking.
You know, let me know. I'm very down for something like that.
Sweet. Oh, you might let me meet Jazz? Are you kidding?
Oh, I would go anywhere with Jazz because she's the love of my life. But Fiji sounds like a preferable place. I mean, like, if you're going to go somewhere, you might as well go to Fiji.
Right? Yeah, I'm down. Well, I hope that you're doing well there. I know it's like, what, 4 a.m. or something?
Yeah.
Due to the time changes.
Hats off to you, making us part of your morning routine.
Right. Thank you, DS. And please do reach out. Let's see. Who else? We have a couple more guys. I want to hit him. It's Stevie. Stevie's on time. Okay, see, now this is the thing. Where's... I don't have my Telecaster available. Otherwise, I would have done a little thing about print right there. I refuse to refer to the player previously known as Janoris as Jackrabbit.
They calling him Jackrabbit?
On the broadcast and everything. I am not doing it.
I've never even heard that before, though. He's been Janoris Jenkins. It's not like he's a rookie. He's been around for years.
Right. So I am calling him the previously known as Janoris, just like Prince. So that's my 2 cents. But yeah, I said it on the game plan on the Chiefs here, and I'll probably reiterate it tomorrow. So if I'm Andy and Patrick, it doesn't matter whether it's cheat or not. And I just referred to Tyreek as cheat. I'm losing it. I would be attacking him first and foremost all day long.
Yeah, he was struggling. He's still an athlete, but but he was struggling. I think concepts and stuff are going to be the more problematic thing. It's kind of interesting watching some of the other guys step up against Washington. You saw some nice catches and nice moments from some of the other guys, that's all they need. It's like we just need 2 or 3 from these other guys every week.
Yeah, and it can rotate who it is. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Your third fiddle, just play your part.
Yep, they're clearly taking their time with Gordon, and people got so hyped up, us included. I got mostly hyped up because the way they were talking really made it sound like they thought he was catching on faster than they thought. Now my expectations are more like, if he's going to have a huge role in the offense, it's going to be like after the bye week.
Right.
Oh,
well, and Scott was going that direction already. So let me ask you this. Do you think Jody's unfortunate injury leads to more of moving that timeline up?
You know what? Maybe because it feels like Fortson was getting more snaps and running some of those routes that you could put Gordon in. And man, look, it's one catch, but Fortson has made catches like that his whole career. It's just been in preseason, but like, oh, let's see him do it in the regular season. And he did. And it was such a bummer seeing him get hurt because he caught another pass earlier. And you could see him starting to get worked into the rotation. I'm telling you, people think that it's just a bit on times hours, this whole fourth season thing and stuff. But he really can play and fits a specific skill set that is good for them. And now that he's bulked up and can do some of the blocking stuff that they need, still is a move tight end. I mean, you're not going to have him necessarily firing off the line, although maybe give him one more offseason where all he can do is bulk up. I mean, he can do some stuff.
Right now he's playing exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing is he's playing exactly how we envisioned him playing when he came out, a converted receiver that needed to bulk up, but has those receiving skills. That was a glorified wheel route. That's exactly what he's here for because he's got a linebacker mismatch or he's got zone that he can attack. It's the best of both worlds.
Absolutely.
And folks, that's why we see the future because we just do that.
Yes. Well, and that's why you can envision Gordon running some stuff like that. But some of that stuff is stuff that it requires a really good timing. And Andy Reid's offense just is not easy. And so the fact that Gordon's even seeing, a dozen snaps a game, it's at least promising to an extent to get some timing stuff down. He made a really nice block on, I can't remember. I think it was a catch by Hill. Maybe it wasn't, but it was one of those quick wide receiver screens. And he just drove the guy, his defender 10, 15 yards back. It was awesome, which is what you can do when you're, 6'3", 230, 240, and you're just.
And your DB's outweighed by 40 pounds. Yeah.
Yeah.
Folks, this isn't a Q&A show. We'll try to get to most of the questions. If you got something important, get it to Aaron if you would. Do you think they can get 5 stops? And I'm treating stops as in forcing punts. That's half the possessions, basically.
Yeah, I mean that'd be a good game unless you allow touchdowns every drive the rest of the way. You're probably holding them to 20, 24 points, give or take. I think they could get that.
Yeah. I'm gonna take the under that.
Yeah, it just depends. I'm curious if Derrick Henry does his best work in the fourth quarter. They can't be facing like a 10-point deficit by the fourth quarter for him to kind of do his thing.
Right.
So we'll kind of see. But I could see them getting that. But again, we've got one half of competent football aside with like a few interspersed drives, especially from the defense.
Let's put a whole game together.
I'd settle for 2.5 or 3/4 right now.
Okay.
Just
Hey, fair enough.
Baby steps.
Guys, a couple other things. No, I don't think Zayden Anderson's going to get elevated unless there's an injury to one of the safeties. I don't see that coming. And I don't think Mac's going to end up in Kansas City, you guys. I don't know if they'll let him go at all, but it is.
Kolomac?
No, Marlon.
Oh yeah, Marlon Mack. that was interesting to me. That inquiry.
Seth Piper, you might have something here. I don't know. I'll tell you one thing, people think I've been joking all week. I'm not. Colin Saunders needs to play linebacker in this game. I'm not even kidding. At the very least, in goal line or short yardage situations.
You could, it'd be interesting. They could line him up as a Sam and just write, Reggie Ragland's old role.
Yep.
Which on a side note, you and I talked about that a few weeks ago. Ragland was a guy, it was a bummer that they lost him. He was a very matchup specific player that added a very specific thing to prevent very specific exploitations, right? Because if you were going against a team that you knew was going to go big, you knew was going to try to do certain things against you, lining up Ragland as a Sam, I mean, it paid dividends in the 2019 playoffs. It's tough to be physical when you got a Sam that's basically a big old defensive end who plays like one. I mean, that dude's solid. And so that would be kind of interesting in terms
he fixed
of
a very specific problem with your defense.
Yeah.
And he ran back turnovers.
Yeah, I like it.
Welcome back, Gooch. I'm glad you're here. Folks,
good to see you, Gooch.
They're on a roll. There will be a Rogue Head Huddle on Friday. Do not miss it. Stevie and Gooch, free at last. I'll be watching. I hope that you guys will as well. And thank you for doing that, you guys. Let's cross out the rest of the super chats, and we'll get to your articles because I love where you went with it, and I want to ask you a couple of specifics.
Sure.
Yes, tasty and juicy. It depends on the day. If it's on the smoker, it's more than likely. I'm just saying. And thank you, Gooch. I'll take that. I think, although it might be that Seth's tastier now that he's dropping weight, I'm a little jealous. Bolton at middle, Sneed need to ball out. Absolutely. And Rasta, thank you very much. I'm glad that you enjoy it. We have a good time doing the show and honestly all the shows. Thunder Bros versus analytics picks. I like that. Yeah, we'll figure that out, Gooch. And part of what will go into that is how well the secondary can stop people and what a single high safety can actually do for you. Seth took a long look at it this week over at the place that you can see all of his work. And if you don't know it already, it's not Coach Vaz, which I almost just clicked. Sorry. It is right here at the Substack for the Minnesota Chiefs fan. Yeah, over there.
That's the good subscribe.
You know what? It's probably a good idea.
It's probably better entertainment than watching me eat cashews.
It probably is. That's why I'm trying to talk over it as much as humanly possible. So
this is what happens when you give up carbs and sugar. It's like, I need to get a bite to eat like right now. Or I'm going to be like.
I need 17 calories before I pass out.
Yeah. I knew after the game, really, as soon as it was announced that Fenton and Thornhill, or that Thornhill, it got announced that he'd had an increased role. Kind of had a feeling when I saw Fenton was on the field for the first snap, I kind of figured I'd be writing about them because it was going to go one of two ways. It was either going to be, hey, they did the thing we've been clamoring for and didn't make a difference, or it was going to be, hey, it did make a difference. And fortunately, it did. And some of it, Washington doesn't have a good offense, but I mean, the Eagles don't have a good offense either, and they made them look awesome. And so I'm curious what you saw too. I count on you for a lot of this type of stuff. I'm curious if you had to pick a player who you thought was more impactful, who you'd pick, because I've been thinking about this all week.
Because for me, it's Thornhill hands down, because not because of his particular play in general, but because he's a force multiplier, and I think he made everyone play better, knowing that he's over the top of them.
And I like the idea of force multiplier. Fenton played better in a quantifiable way, right? You can chart wins, successes, and failures in coverage, and you can chart passes defense. You can when it's 3rd and 7 and he funnels that route shallow and lays a nice hit and it's a 3-yard gain because that was a great play. 3rd and 7 to funnel that route because they're trying to push that slant inside and Fenton just out physicaled them and then went for the ball with no penalty. Awesome play. It's quantifiable. Fenton also moves the needles in some ways that aren't as quantifiable in terms of zone coverage. He does his job. He doesn't travel out. of his zone. He takes minimal steps while keeping his eyes on the quarterback to where he doesn't overreact to any one guy coming in and out of his zone. One of my favorite snaps, if you check out this week's piece on Fenton and Thornhill, it's one of my favorite. It's kind of hard sometimes to capture good zone coverage, but there was a snap where you see Fenton manage to cover windows for 3 different routes in 3 different areas of the field in zone coverage. And it kind of shows all you have to do is imagine him overcommitting to any one of those routes to realize how huge the windows get with zone coverage. There's a reason why Mahomes dices zone coverage. As athletic as these guys are and as fast as they close windows, those windows exist. And all it takes is 1 or 2 steps for those windows to get big, because it's a big field and you only got like 7 guys back there. I mean, a football field's big. Walk across it sometime. It's huge. But with Fenton, he does his job. He doesn't blow coverages. And just having an above average, non-weak spot at corner, because Mike Hughes, the minute he came into the game, Washington started to go after him.
Yep.
And so I'm really looking forward. It sounds like Ward is practicing again. And I think
limited,
a trio. Say again, limited?
Limited, I believe.
Oh, was that today?
I'll double check while you're talking.
Darn. A trio of Snead, Fenton, and Ward, with Snead generally probably playing slot in the 3 safety sets. He's going to be on the field 100% of the time, more or less, because he's the best of the 3 and the most versatile. But you get those 3 guys on the field. Those are your guys. That's a group that I'm very comfortable with. And Hughes is a 4th corner I can live with, or Baker. Yeah. But Hughes was getting picked on. More and more defenses were coming after him. Whether or not Fenton is going to start over Ward would be interesting. They've generally favored Ward. Fenton, I think, played better than Ward has played this year, but Ward's played pretty well.
But they don't need him. They need all 3 of those guys. Like you said,
right.
Snead, Ward, Fenton are your top 3, just like we said preseason guys, just like we said in OTAs, just like we said at the end of the season.
Well, and that's where, the thing of it is that any one of them, whoever the 3rd guy is going to, whether it's Ward or Fenton, Snead's going to start on the boundary. He's going to slide inside. One advantage with Fenton is that he can slide inside as well. Ward is not a slot corner. He's like, they never line him up there, hardly ever. And there's a reason for that. His skill set is terrible for that. He works the boundary well. Whoever it is that's the 3rd guy is still probably going to play 70% of the snaps. And then your advantage is you move, and I would say maybe even more of the snaps, because there are certain times where, honestly, I'd prefer, having Fenton playing some kind of interesting role or Snead playing some kind of interesting role, as opposed to forcing Sorensen on the field where he doesn't need to be. Because both Ward and Fenton are better players than Dan Sorensen. Now, they can't do everything he can do, but there's more speed, more talent when it's them.
I'll tell you what.
I want to hear it.
And I talked about this a little bit in the offseason. It never came to fruition. I love the double robber concept, right? I like having the single high with 2 guys that drop down, because that's
Fenton's a great robber. Just
exactly.
Is that where
you've seen him do nickel drops out of there, right? So I'm fine if he's on the outside and all of a sudden they want to go dime, leave him in, bring in Hughes, let him shift over to play that other robber spot.
Yeah, and Fenton has a real feel for zone. And he does a great job with robber type stuff. There's a reason he's in position to contest passes a lot, despite the fact that he's about an average athlete for a corner, maybe in terms of top end speed, a little below average, but he's got good feet. He plays physical, and he's got a feel for zone coverage, and that makes up for a lot of it. I really like him as a robber. You know who else I like as a robber? Tyrann Mathieu.
Oh, what an idea.
You know who got to play a lot more robber on Sunday? Tyrann Mathieu.
Oh, there you go.
And that's where the force multiplies. So I just said a bunch of nice things about Fenton. And it's easy to say a bunch of things after a good game. I'm not saying Fenton's a star. He's not a lockdown corner. There are matchups he's going to get exploited against high-level athletes. If they were playing themselves, for example, you don't want Fenton alone against Hill on the boundary. Because unless he's got help, if Hill gets Hill's like that with literally everyone, but even more so than normal, he's going to get quick separation. That's just tough. But he did play well. And that's the thing. If you go from below average to above average at the corner spot, it's a big deal. It also allows defense to play a little bit different in other areas, like allowing Snead to we'll get to this with Thornhill. Thornhill is a force multiplier, not just with his skill set, but with what his skill set allows them to call,
Mhm.
which allows them to put other guys where they're good. L'Jarius Sneed has struggled at times this year. He's played pretty well, but he's had a lot more mental errors than he did last year. And I think part of that, I think you had a little bit too much too fast there with Spags. He saw this guy who's good at everything. And so he wanted him to do everything. He wanted to be a mini honey badger. Not everyone can do what Tyrann Mathieu does. That's a lot of rules to learn.
Yeah.
And you saw him, some of those blown coverages, especially the first 3 weeks or so, more of them were Sneed than people were comfortable letting on because he was biting on certain things.
For you guys who want to understand what Seth's talking about here, jump in the memberships. Even if you just want to try it out for a month, you got to go to the rookie level. Go watch the foul language laden video with Coach Vaz because we went over very specifically. He and I got deep into rules versus the alignment versus the shell or the scheme, because rules is the hardest part of this defense, because every position that Seth's talking about has a completely different set of rules based on what they're doing. That's the hard part.
And Vass is, I actually haven't watched that one. I've watched Vass talk about rules before, and it's very next level stuff.
Yeah.
And it helps you understand a great deal. I don't know if he used to how he really has a lot of insight into Spagnuolo's defense.
He does. He spends a lot of time. My battery's dying. Go on in your thought, and I'll be right back.
I'm going to go on with my thought. So with Juan Thornhill, Ryan really accurately called him a force multiplier. All right, guys, we're alone. What do we really think about Ryan? No, I'm kidding. The idea of a force multiplier. Thornhill can play deep safety. Everyone talks about that all the time. He also can play man coverage on tight ends, on running backs, even on wide receivers occasionally. His ability to play those two roles, protect the boundaries, do certain things like that, it means that you don't have to force L'Jarius Sneed or Tyrann Mathieu into playing certain roles. You don't have to force Sneed into certain coverages that maybe he's not necessarily the guy. You don't have to force Sneed to kind of play the Mathieu role because Matthew's stuck playing deep because Dan Sorensen can't do it. You don't have to have Matthew stuck deep because Dan Sorensen can't do it, so he can be in a robber where he's more effective. So you move Matthew to where he's most effective. You move Sneed to where he's just playing cover corner where he's been most effective, or blitzing because he's awesome at that too. And so now you've got two different guys move to where they are better, and without even having to do anything, you've made the defense better overall. And that's what it means to be a force multiplier. It's not just that Thornhill's a better deep safety than Sorensen. He is. But Sorensen can't do it. So when Sorensen's on the field, they run more cover two, which means they're automatically weaker against the run. When you can play more with one guy over the top and a robber here, which they love doing with Thornhill and Matthew, you can also disguise your coverages better, and it doesn't look nearly as forced as what it looked like the first 6 weeks of the season. You can disguise better. You've got another guy close to the line of scrimmage who's solid in his run fits, which Matthew is. Because even just having an extra guy in your run fits, even if he's not a big guy, Sorensen's a good run defender. Not an incredible one, but a good one. He plays well. He plays smart, and he tackles well. That's important. When you just have an extra guy who knows his run fit and does it right, and that extra guy in the box, that is also a force multiplier because it forces them into that linebacker, into that defensive lineman, etc. So with Thornhill, you've got him placing both Matthew and to a lesser extent Sneed where they're more successful. And it's kind of like it's like a domino effect. Thornhill being on the field puts Matthew in his normal role where he most succeeds. Can Matthew be a single high safety? Sure. Is he as good at it as Thornhill? No, he's not as good at it as Thornhill. He doesn't quite have that same closing speed. And he's talked about that. He's not the athlete he was pre-injury and when he was younger. So he's had to change how he plays. Great robber, probably the best in the league. But single high, that's not where he's best at. He's good at it. And so you put Matthew where he's at his best, where he can run around before the plays and do all sorts of goofy stuff. And it doesn't matter because he's not bound to be a cover two guy or being over the top. So he can move around and still be in position. But also by moving Matthew, you moved Sneed out of this kind of some of these hybrid things that they had Sneed doing, which is a great idea in theory, but he's a second-year player who was struggling mentally with it. And so that's what, by force multiplier, I think that's what you meant. We didn't talk about you at all while you were gone, guys. And
that's cool.
And that's that really is with Thornhill. It's not just about who he is as a player. He's a good player, but he is perfect for what the Chiefs need to have their other guys be in their best spot.
Yeah. He's a classic free safety that allows you to have an aggressive defense. That's what it comes down to.
Yep.
I mean, if you guys want to go look back in history. Troy Polamalu was good in space, but he was better at the line of scrimmage. He was a great robber as well. Did you want him playing free, just keeping everything in front of him? Not necessarily, because he couldn't make plays that way. That's what you need a true free center fielder for, and that's what Juan is. He reminds me, honestly, of Gary Fencing from the 85 Bears. He allowed Dave Dewerson to be the Tyrann Mathieu of his day and come down and hammer stuff. And that's honestly how Rex's dad got things done, is by moving around the X factor in his defense.
Hey, can you do me a quick favor? We're going to take a side note for just a minute. Harry Mills at 635.
Okay.
If you could select that comment, because I recognize the picture here and I recognize H. Mills. Yes. And we had a moment of recognition on a previous thing.
Oh,
Mills,
cool.
It's good to see you. I'm amazed that comment wasn't at least 20 paragraphs longer. So Mills.
Go read the regular comments.
Oh, is it? Do you do that here too? Mills, Baja, we had an H. That was BJ. That was BJ Kissel. The Arrowhead Pride comment section was filled with future Chiefs media back in the day. You know, Matt was Flowers 24 or something like that.
Oh yeah.
I'm the only one that's still Minnesota Chiefs fan. But Mills, I just appreciate you, man.
I was road guy back then. I can't remember.
You were road guy. And so Mills, I know I've said this once before in these things, man, but it's awesome to see you, sincerely. And so Mills has been since before I did this for a job. I mean, when I joined Arrowhead Pride, probably in like 08, 09, and we were just commenters. And yeah, this has been, what a ride, huh? And now the Chiefs have won the Super Bowl. Anyway, I just wanted to give Mills a shout out. One of just the best dudes, no matter how heated things got in the comment section, was just always so awesome to talk to. Yeah,
and I appreciate it, Harry. You've been making comments for years now here, and it raises the level of discussion. I truly appreciate that. Don't let Seth hear that, though. He'll get a big head. Oh, wait, too late. So the interesting thing
by being God's gift to the world, he said. That's so funny.
See, you're ahead of me on the chat still. This is what happens with my internet, folks.
Yeah.
And by the way, Starlink says they're going to get it to me by the end of 2021, folks. If Elon can help me out, you will actually see a professional-looking stream. Don't hold your breath or nothing.
Oh, it's going to be amazing. I can't wait to see you with an actual internet connection. You'll be unstoppable.
See this. It'll be bad.
But, I mean, it's interesting watching the Chiefs defense. Again, Washington's not a good offense, but the Chiefs defense did play legitimately well most of the game. They had one drive that was that touchdown they gave up. I think it was Seals Jones.
Yeah.
It was interesting. I read a good article on that was breaking down some stuff that noted that the previous on that same drive, they gave up a 3rd and long on a screen.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the touchdown, they bit too hard on a screen.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a really well called play sequence. And you see
but I've gone back and looked at it. I broke it down at halftime because I was so pissed off.
Oh my God. That was one of the worst defensive plays I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like they showed the all 22 and I was like, that is brutal.
Yeah. And at first I thought it was a cover 2. It was not on further review. I think Danilo said that he thought it was a 1 high. It wasn't. It was cover 3. It was just the fact that Juan took he got to the middle, a little bit over the top and took a couple steps back and then had to turn right away. It was the recognition factor. And so was the corner on the opposite side. What happened was that Hughes bit. Hughes was supposed to be the deep third on that particular play. I'm pretty sure.
I think you're right. And that's where a lot of people blame Neiman, and I get it. Because if it were man coverage, that would be his job to carry Seals Jones. But I do think that it was cover 3, and I think it was Hughes's job to not bite. Now, I mean, we don't know because, I mean, sometimes Spags does crazy things, I'll never forget when Rashad Fenton picked off Tom Brady and Tony Romo was like, well, this is he blew the coverage here. And it was and people were like, well, actually, it was this cover 6 derivative. And I was like, what the freaking crap is cover 6? Which, I'm sorry, I said freaking.
It's one of my favorites, by the way.
Well, yeah, and it's a great coverage. And this was years ago. This is before I really started getting more into coverages, which, by the way, is a rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's really no such thing as a static coverage in the NFL. That's where Coach Vass's stuff on rules is such a good thing because it's really so dynamic. It's like option routes on offense, basically. I mean, everything has its rules. So that was just, it was such a bad snap. And that whole, I mean, the screen that they gave up, like it was like 3rd and 16 or 3rd and 20 or something. That was embarrassing. The lack of pursuit, the whole thing. Outside of that drive, that one drive, the defense is what kept them in the game while the offense was still just giving the ball away. And it's just interesting to see them, the defense put together a more complete game than the offense did against Washington. It's just the offense, the defense, when it's on, has a ceiling. It just does. Unless Frank Clark suddenly snaps back into 2018, Frank Clark, the defense has a ceiling.
Which I want to ask you about this week when you're done with your thought about the Titans.
The offense, they don't have a ceiling. When they snap on and they're not turning the ball over, their ceiling is scoring a touchdown every single drive. And it doesn't necessarily matter that much what the defense is doing. It just doesn't. People can talk about, well, you know, they figured out Mahomes with cover 2. It's like, look, it's a good idea. But I mean, it's like, it's not like there's no, it's like, I hope Andy Reid knows some beaters for, let me check my cover 2. I don't know if Andy's got anything in his playbook for that. They just no ceiling. I think one thing worth noting, and I want to hear your thought here coming up, but it's worth noting that the Chiefs played one half of really good football on both sides of the ball. And that one half was enough to blow out a bad team. And one half of good football from the Chiefs, for them, their Chiefs football, one half of good football for them is enough to beat 70% of the teams in the league. A full game of it, I don't think it matters who the opponent is. 3/4 of it, I think, probably beats everyone except maybe the Bucs, a couple of other really good teams, maybe the Bills because of matchup type stuff. But it's just an interesting thing to watch because people are like, well, it was only one good half. Absolutely true. They need to put together way more. We'll see how they look against Tennessee. Maybe they come out looking completely sloppy again. But it is at least worth noting that one good half is enough for them to just blow a team out of the water.
Let me ask you if you buy into this, because I said it early in the week on the podcast, and I do believe it myself. I felt like the attitude, especially when Tyreek wasn't on the field and then came back in, I felt like the execution, I felt like the whole thing felt different. It felt like the turning point in the season to me, that halftime, whatever happened.
You want to know, and this is, I swear this is not a bit, and this is not me making light of anything. I felt like Jody Fortson's injury was kind of a weird moment. And maybe I'm projecting here, okay? Because I was so upset with the team, with the offense, with how they were playing and stuff. And, you know, then they were starting to turn it around. Fortson gets injured. And suddenly I just wasn't so mad about the offense because everything kind of snaps into place, right? Everything kind of crystallized like, man, that dude was getting his shot. And he was
maximizing it.
He was maximizing it. And you see it because with Reed, he'll keep feeding you just a little more and a little more. And you could see it. And then he got hurt. And he's a good dude. He's a really nice guy. He's gone out of his way, I know, to thank multiple people that have been kind about stuff, or not even kind, just doing their jobs. And he's just excited to be in the NFL. And he was there, and you saw it, and you just remember from it that this is a job, and you're like, that poor, not kid, but that poor guy, young man. I'm old, so.
Oh, stop it. I don't even want to hear it.
Well, not as old as you. I didn't say I was ancient. But it kind of snapped everything into place for me. And I swear you almost saw the team lose some nerves after that, because after watching a guy lose something that important, a bad snap just isn't as big a deal. Yeah. And you can just move on to the next snap. And I swear I felt a bit of a shift there too. But I agree that halftime, they just came out and things were different.
And if they keep rolling, I think we will look back on it as that. And I'll tell you this, you guys. If you want to get a feel for who Jody Fortson not only is, but who he was, I've interviewed, I don't know, probably 15, 18 of the Chiefs players through the years, one time or another. Very few guys that are still on the roster now. I interviewed him during OTAs as a rookie, not long after he got signed. And you could hear it in his voice there that he understood what his journey was going to have to be. And that he was prepared for it. And I encourage you guys to go just hit Locked On Chiefs, Jody Fortson, you'll find it. It's probably my favorite player interview I've ever done. Sorry, Mike Burton, I'll get you next time. Yeah. It was really impressive.
Yep. Just a dude who genuinely he gets it. He really gets it. And so we'll see how it goes. I know we've got some super chats and stuff, and I was curious to hear some of your thoughts in terms of like with the Titans and that half a game and all that, because I know you said you had some thoughts, and then I demagogued for a while.
Yeah, it happens. Let me go back to it. But AP, thank you for the super chat. I cannot think of one that can top Harvey Williams. Can you, Seth?
No.
Okay. Because I mean, he was a goose running down the field.
Yeah.
But when it comes to running backs, that does remind me. I wanted to get your take on. You just kind of side mentioned him. Oh wait, one more here. Daryl's got one. Can we hold Henry under 150 and get a win? And he likes the outfit tonight. Well done. Daryl, thank you for the super chat. And we talked about it a little bit earlier. Maybe you run late, but Seth thinks that he can hit what? Say it again. 150.
I'm sorry. He said I look thin, and I've just been seeing stars since then. Do I think he can hit 150? And I don't know if they can hold him under 150. But he can rush for 150 and they still win.
Yeah.
The path, like any other team facing the Chiefs, almost any other team, they're not quite what they thought they were this year. But for most teams, and that includes the Titans, the path for victory for the Titans is narrower than the path to victory for the Chiefs.
Yeah, fair enough. And that brings me, and guys, I know there's questions. I'm sorry, this isn't the Q&A show. That's on Monday night, same time. We're trying to get through our thoughts on the week. So if I miss some of your questions, I'll try to get to them, but come back on Monday and make sure I'll get them then. I do see questions about Chili Calhoun. I actually pretty high as an upside guy when he came out. He's never materialized to that. So let's hope that this is the charm. Let's see. He definitely had the ability coming out of school. So that brings me back to Henry, though, and how you stop him from the defensive end position. I don't think Shalik's going to be in a position to help. But Frank is a guy who has always talked up stopping Henry in particular and beating the Titans. It's been a team that he's actually been pretty focused on in his time in Kansas City. Mm-hmm. I don't think that Frank is even back to where he was last season. But do you think that this is the kind of thing that might pull the frankness out of Frank?
I think so. It's just whether there's enough physically there. Mm-hmm. One thing that's been interesting the last 2 weeks. And I haven't really noticed a ton of him, although I mean he got credit for more than a couple pressures the last few weeks.
Mm-hmm. 4.
I watched him win with power moves a couple times,
mm-hmm.
which was interesting.
Not long arms though, did you?
No, not long arm. It's so weird because that was his move. That was, mm-hmm. I mean, we're talking, that was his go-to, and everything came from that. But he won with a couple of bowls. And I just wonder whether was there permanent stuff with the nerves, because he played pretty well down the stretch in 19. But it's so weird. I don't know if I've ever seen a player that was so had their go-to move and then just went away from it. Now I've talked to a few offensive linemen who talked about, he's going to need to learn to combat that as people more and more really identify that long arm. But one of these offensive linemen who told me this he also said most tackles don't have any idea how to deal with a long arm, and most coaches don't teach it right, where it just doesn't work at the NFL level.
Physical thing.
Yeah, it's a physical thing. And so that's still weird. It's weird, but I think it'll definitely pull the motivation out for him. And I think Clark being back, it allows Dana to play the edge more. It allows Jones being outside to be more situational than full-time, mm-hmm. which I think some kind of 50-50 split's a good idea, if that.
Yeah, okay. I won't argue at this point. My big thing is I don't think that they've got enough pass rush. Mike Dana has since proved me wrong in that he's not, that he's not going to get the quick sack. He's going to rely on somebody else to pressure a QB into him, or he's just mm-hmm. going to have to work for it. Mm-hmm. But he is willing to do that work, and I like what we've seen from him. So I'm okay with that. The question comes down to, can they be solid enough against that front? Whether Frank is super Frank or regular Frank, or I don't know what's wrong with you, Frank. They have to be able to set that edge against Henry in particular, and that's what's concerning. So
yeah, you got to protect those cutbacks. Bolton is going to be very important in this game. And Gay, especially if they it was so weird. It was like roles were flipped. They've got Gay lining up as a Sam attacking downhill, and they've got Bolton playing Will in space. And I'm like, that's not what I would do.
That's a practice rep thing. I don't think they installed it that way because they didn't expect to miss Hitch. And so they didn't have the practice time in. They better have flipped that this year, because you're absolutely right. Not only does he have to play the Will, Willie's the only guy that can take on a guard and defeat him physically.
Mm-hmm.
Bolton can't do it. I'm sorry, folks.
We
Nick can fill holes. He cannot take a guard and physically beat him, period.
Right. Which is interesting because he does arrive so heavy as a tackler, and he plays very strong. So there's got to be a way he could get there, but so far he hasn't shown he can. And I don't know if that's a size thing or what. It's because it's not like Gay's bigger than he is. And maybe it's a length thing.
But like, if you go watch Willie's snaps, what was it? I can't remember. What was the big game late in the season? Like, he literally is able to take guards and bend them back.
Yeah,
like, he can win at the contact.
He's a strong player. Because he's so athletic, that gets lost in the shuffle. With Bolton, if they're able to limit his coverage responsibilities, he can help the run defense because he arrives heavy, hits hard, tackles well. That matters. When he hits a guy, generally speaking, not all the time, but generally speaking, the play ends. It's like a Reggie Ragland thing, only he's not nearly Reggie Ragland's size. So there's only the comparison for the one thing. But those guys are going to be huge, especially because Bolton does not have the speed to catch Henry.
Right. And you saw that even last week.
Yeah. And he can't be caught in pursuit. He's got to catch him at the line or even laterally where, he's going to get dragged for a few yards, but he hits pretty hard. And let me just tell you, I've seen Henry get got in games. His physical running style, I'll go to my grave saying for all the crap Daniel Sorensen's gotten and probably deserved. I think he hurt Derrick Henry in the 2019 AFC Championship.
You do?
He gave him a shoulder to the thigh that if you watch, it was a great tackle. It was on a big run. Well, not a big run, but a decent game. And if you watch that play afterwards, Henry gets up slow. And
that's the way you got to do it. You guys have seen the stiff arms. Henry will put you on the ground if you try to go up high, and you've seen him run through ankle tackles. You have to hit him in the thighs. The part that they tell linebackers, don't get kneed in the face, don't go in there. That's where you have to stick him right on the thigh tap. It's the only way to bring him down consistently.
Right.
Coach, I told my dying day. Kyle, I think Jody will be back. I think he will be fine. I don't know if he'll be ready for the beginning of the season. It depends, especially with longer-limbed Achilles. Sometimes that's a little problematic. We'll see.
I hope so.
I hope so, too. He's earned it. I think they'll definitely have him back. And from what Travis said, I think that vote from a future Hall of Famer like that is probably enough to keep him driven.
Yep.
Take this one.
I haven't heard anything about Tyrann Mathieu's toe.
He showed up on the injury report with a toe and the wrist or the thumb. So he
hurt his thumb.
Out of the blue.
I learned about the thumb thing. Why are Chiefs fans criticizing him? The praise for Tyrann Mathieu vastly outweighs the criticism, and rightfully so. And so
you work for the Athletic.
I'm hesitant for like a narrative created like that the Chiefs fans are really hard on him because I don't think they are. If there were any star player on the defense that has legitimate beef, I think it's Chris Jones, because I feel like he takes more grief than any elite player ever should. He missed a couple games and people are like, oh, I'm like, what the? Okay, let's chill. So with Mathieu, I will acknowledge that I've had a number of people in my mentions saying like, well, why isn't Mathieu hitting? Like, why is he making business decisions? And I guess I would just say I haven't seen a ton of that. I do see him, if it's the end of a play and the tackle's there, he doesn't dive in. And I think people are used to seeing guys dive in, but I think that is Mathieu making a business decision, but not in a way that like affects the game. I think anytime there's it could actually affect the game, I think he gets right in there. But I just think the way he phrased it when he laid up on Deshaun Watson, ironically enough, for a variety of reasons, one of which being maybe there's a lot of people who want to hit Deshaun Watson now, where he could have hit him in the divisional round, the game was over, and someone criticized him like, oh, why'd you lay up? And he said, I'm not fake guy tough. Game was over. I knew the ball was out. I'm not going to pulverize the guy.
Right.
And that's just him. He's a smart player. He doesn't see the point in doing stuff that might hurt him, might hurt someone else, that doesn't move the needle. And I've seen that criticism. Other than that, it's pretty much universal praise for Mathieu, as far as I can tell.
Let me tell you the 3 reasons why. He's 29 years old. He's 5'9", and he's about $170 on a wet day. So that's why he doesn't go in like he's a linebacker, folks. Let's just call it what it is.
He might get the worst end of it, and he's willing to make a hit if it matters. But why? They want him on his feet, taking away routes, filling running lanes appropriately, and that doesn't mean just taking on tackles. That means filling running lanes and generally causing chaos. And you can't do that if you're hurt.
So let's do a thought experiment. Everyone close your eyes.
Oh boy.
I'm serious, people. Close your eyes.
Yeah.
Everything's going. It's a nice brisk day. It's October, right? Defense is doing okay. They gave up like 7 points. They're up 14. Everything's good. There's a run coming at you, and Tyron puts his shoulder down, and now he's out. What does this defense look like? Ruh-roh. Yeah. It's a perfectly acceptable make a business decision, not only for himself, but for this defense to not get himself hurt.
Absolutely. And that's the thing is it gets implied that he's doing it in a way that hurt plays. And I just am not seeing much of that at all, if any. So I think that's something worth noting. I think he hasn't been as impactful as people would like this season because they've had him playing in a less impactful role out of necessity by playing Sorensen as much and Thornhill so little. Ooh, this is going to be.
I will give him this though. On that particular rush, I wasn't concerned about him not putting his shoulder into what was Josh Allen.
Yeah.
I was a little concerned that it looked like he took like a hiccup step. And if he had just turned the corner a little harder, he would have made contact and stopped that play is my only thing. So I don't know if that was just a hesitant, if there was just some strange step or whatever, but there was something else going on there. It wasn't the shoulder that caused that play.
Right.
Okay. You have to take DT. Casey, thank you for the support, DT.
I think running back is so dependent on what else is going on. If you're not, Jamal Charles because even Derrick Henry has been, I think he's better now than he used to be as a player. I think his vision has improved, but I think that I said before the game, I think because of Williams' skill set, the Chiefs are going to shift to a more power and gap approach, which is wildly more what their offensive line is suited for, as opposed to outside zone or even inside zone. And it's also more suited for what defensive linemen and linebackers are doing. When you've got guys trying to penetrate immediately, you're trying to run inside zone. You might have a guy penetrating right to that spot that's being vacated, and it's over. And so I predicted that Darryl would play pretty well, and he did, that they'd run way more gap and power, and they did. And that people would say, see, look how much better he is than Clyde. And they are. I don't think Darryl's better than Clyde. I think Clyde is a better player overall. I think he's significantly more explosive. I think he's quicker. I think his vision is just as good or better. And that's when people say Clyde doesn't have vision. I would say Clyde has made a couple of high-profile misses when running inside or outside zone. He is not. He's just not a zone runner. He is not the read and cut back guy. He really is a gap guy where he can pick his way through as he looks at it, or he goes to a single gap, and if he needs to cut certain ways, he can. That's his game. That's what he was great at LSU, and he's been a fish out of water in Reed's system in that respect. Yeah. Between that and them not using him as much in the passing game as I thought they would, it's been a mystery to me at times. Like, why'd you take a guy who runs gap and power, and you're telling him to run outside zone 15 times a game? Because he doesn't have he's got really good short area burst and quickness, but he doesn't have great acceleration. Not like Kareem Hunt even. And so Hunt could reach those. Hunt was he had just enough acceleration to hit those outside zone looks. Jamal Charles, incredible at it. He was incredible at everything. But Clyde doesn't quite have that to where that race to the sideline, it sets him back half a tick. Whereas you get him running north-south, that's his jam.
Yeah. It's particularly the stretch zones. Where you can see it's terrible. And the funny thing is, and here's two coincidences. And I know we're going late, folks. We're going to go a couple minutes over. The funny part is, I've got over 300 cornerbacks, and I've got over 250 running backs in the Athletic Matrix database. That's how long I've been doing it, folks. Kareem Hunt and CH are literally right next to each other, and so are Baker and Fenton.
Oh, really?
They're literally right next to each other. And so it's everyone's got a little bit different in their ability to do X, Y, Z. When you balance it all out, they're same athletes. But the stretch in particular, I think it's a mental thing. Like you said, people complain about vision. I don't think he has a problem with vision downfield. I think the problem is when you're reading zone, you have to pay attention to what each lineman's contact is, who's getting the penetration, and where you have to cut back. It's not when you're a man guy, you're going to a gap. You're going to beat a guy who happens to be filling, and then you're off to the races, and that's the difference. I think it's mental processing for him and being able to get to that corner.
You see him making decisions based on reading helmets, and with some of those outside zone runs, that's not what you're trying to do.
Yeah,
and so then he'll cut back to the wrong hole, and it won't even be a hole; it just doesn't exist. And so he does have a specific skill set. And now the argument would be, well, if you're going to take a running back in the first round, you don't want a guy with just a specific skill set. I agree, but that's a separate conversation. In terms of whether he's a better running back than Williams, I think we've seen when they were running mostly power, like against the Eagles, Clyde looked great that game. It's just a matter, you've got to stop mismatching him. And I kind of worry that he's just fast enough that Reed is like, well, this is my bread and butter. This is what I've been running.
I can do it. Yeah, exactly.
And you combine that with it not fitting in with what Remmers or previously Niang, Brown and Smith do best. That's a problem. Tooney and Humphrey can do anything.
Yeah.
Smith is not as good with those looks. Although he's better than I thought he would be. But Brown in particular, that's not what he does. You want Brown. You have Orlando Brown. You have a 340-pound tackle. Or 350, probably more likely. I mean, you look at him sitting next to like Andrew Wiley during the mic'd up thing. Orlando Brown is massive. Lucas Niang is massive. Mike Remmers is a huge dude too. Their line is way bigger than it used to be. Just plow some fools out of the way. They've been able to do it against very good defensive linemen. Just
get vertical.
Yeah, they've just gotten vertical. Like when they were, Allen with the Redskins, heck of a player, strong guy. When they were just hitting double teams on him, Smith and Humphrey, they just work guys over, and it's awesome.
They should run duo all day long until somebody stops them. If they blitz and fill gaps with 7 guys, then you can go away from it.
Well, then people are going to be constantly posting pictures and saying zone or duo, and then we won't know what to say. But yes, they should just be doing duo. Just all day. Just say, look, between Creed Humphrey has been great this year. And and PFF is recognizing him, but he still kind of flies under the radar because people see Smith's pancakes, which are awesome. So much fun. And so they pay more attention to him. Like they are. They're so much fun. They're so cool. He's not as consistent as Humphrey. Humphrey is excellent. And whether you have him and Tooney or him and Smith, they will mow guys down. Now, him and Smith especially, because Smith is a guy in the run blocking game straight ahead. He's a lot, man. And he's mean about it. And Humphrey does such a great job helping him out just long enough before climbing to where now you've got Smith. You haven't really been able to move because you've had Creed with a hand on you. And then as he starts to climb, Smith just buries guys. And it's so much fun to watch.
I think I could literally see the difference in the way he has to think, because when he has to get out, when he has to move his feet more than he's comfortable with, you can see him thinking it through. But when it's just straight ahead, hit that combo and come off, it's all instinct.
And his timing with those is great. It's not like he's just a mauler. He has awesome. He does really well on you want to talk about pass pro, the stunts and stuff that he's looked at. He's a cerebral player. Yeah. It's just when he's outside his comfort zone, you can see. And I'm curious what that looks like in a year or two when that becomes more and more instinct. I think Smith, I'm not quite as sure as I used to be that Smith has a higher ceiling than Humphrey, because Humphrey's been everything I thought he'd be and more. Although with Smith, because of his physical gifts, his ceiling really is top 1 or 3 guards in the league. Although it's just tough because of his feet. It's going to be tough to get to a guy like the Quentin Nelsons of the world who can do everything.
That's where I was going. And he's in perfect shape for alignment. But I personally feel if he were able to drop 15 pounds, his feet would improve enough to make it worth giving up that mass in order to be able to move better. And I think it would pay off for him.
That would be interesting because one of his things is he does move well for a really big guard. And so maybe if he just becomes a big guard or an average size guard, because he'd still be a big guard 15 pounds down. He just wouldn't be a huge guard. And then you wonder, so okay, you lose 0.5% of the strength to gain 5% speed, like you Madden it or something. That would be worth watching. But I mean, I really can't get into it enough how great Creed Humphrey has been, which feels, I mean, like I had to point that out. And that's so long road to a short thought with Williams. The offensive line played really well. Like, people are talking about Williams' cutback on that touchdown, which was really nice. Nice cutback, very patient. I personally, people are like, oh, CEH would have just run into the wall there. I don't think he would have, because of the type of blocking that was. He wouldn't have even probably pushed it as far as Williams did. He probably would have stopped and gone, because the wall that got created there just swept Washington's defense away. And that's fun to watch with Brown too. I didn't think he would do as well as a run blocker as he has with Kansas City. I thought he'd be a slight downgrade from Fisher, because Fisher could run block, but I didn't really think it through enough, them switching more to power, which Fish could do, but wasn't great at.
Fish is what I'm talking about with Trey. Fish uses his feet to gain angles in the run game, whereas Brown, if he can touch you, he can just
he throws guys aside. It's awesome. And I'm just keep waiting for them more and more. It kind of makes me wish, and I'm glad they're not doing it. And I know we're way over time here. Sometimes I think about, like, if all things were equal and you could just flip offensive linemen wherever you wanted and it didn't matter, it would be really interesting to see Tooney on the right side and see Smith and Brown next to each other. Because some of the calls you could make, just like, look, I want each of you to take those defensive linemen and move them. And there's going to be a gap right here, and we're going to have Humphrey run right through that gap. And that would be cool. Now, left guard and right guard have different responsibilities. Tooney belongs right where he's at, because he's played at a really high level. He's a robot, man. Yeah. Even with his hand in a cast, he played so well against Allen that Brandon Thorne did a whole video on it, like some of the things that he did. And so it's a cool time. Also, keep in mind that of these guys that we're talking about, 3 of them, they're under contract for the next 4 years.
It's a nice thing. Folks, if you ever get a chance to play me in Madden, I will not give out my tag name because I'm not that good at it. But I've built a custom roster. You know what I did?
Oh, no.
I have Kelsey at center, and I have 4 copies of Joe Patonio at all the other offensive line spots.
That's basically what you do.
It's beautiful.
That's like the least surprising thing I've heard all day. That's like, yep, that sounds exactly right.
It's going to work. Folks, I think we will leave it at that. We are over time, and I have to record the draft show, but luckily Croc's running a little bit late, so we had some extra time. So thanks for hanging with me as we went over. I know you're not surprised.
Yeah.
What are you going to work on next? Let's let everybody know.
Right now, the day job's burying me. I still need to, I'm going to do the Mahomes weekly charting like I always do. I'd really like to look into one more player this week. I thought about looking at Gay's limited snaps and Bolton's limited snaps after Hitchens got hurt. I'd like to do that. I don't know how much time I'm going to have. I also, there's been a couple other people that have written about that have done a really nice job. That I think I retweeted one of the articles there. So I'm not sure. I really want to get to that. But the biggest thing is the weekly Mahomes review. I've charted every snap every week. It's one that people look forward to every week. It seems like, at least. But I also thought maybe I would go over Remmer's snaps. So basically, I want to do one more thing, but the day job is just slowly choking me into oblivion. And so if all of you who watch this video subscribe to the Chief in the North newsletter, you could save me from lawyering. You could save me. Because look, I'm a prosecutor. I've got a good job. It's got benefits. So for me to be able to do the Chiefs thing full time, the website's got to kind of.
Okay. Well, that's where you can get on the action, folks. I will be looking forward to it as well. And make sure you check out what's over there. Make sure you check out Dan's film review from yesterday. He did it live. I think, Seth, that's something that you should start to get into. That's a good time. We might have to do it, the 3 of us, and just see what we can pick apart.
I think if there's any one thing we want me to do, it's being responsible for more live things myself as I go.
I thought it was wonderful, folks. Let them know how much you enjoyed it, because you know what? It made me feel young. No response at all. I do want to shout out one more thing, you guys. If you want to get yourself one of these, make sure you do that. It hasn't been too long. This is the address to get all of the All Jew stuff and support Teresa's foundation. You can support it directly as well. But I've noticed lately that a lot of folks that tended to support him when it first happened have kind of, gone on with other things. And I want to make sure that we don't forget about this. So jump in there and get your All Jew stuff. I'm going to keep doing it myself. So that's it for today. We'll have a couple of thoughts tomorrow. You're going to see Roguehead Huddle tomorrow. Thank you, Stephen Gooch, as always. Thank all of you super chatters and you new members. If you do, I do have to say one more thing. If you are a new member and you're rookie or above, you want to get into the Discord, hit me at this email address, rgrpods@gmail.com. And for those of you who catch this on audio, I do believe I got Spotify fixed. So, hey, I can't make promises, but I can make quote unquote. Oh, and of course, while I did all that, another super chat came in. Right? Oh, no, it didn't. Okay, good. I feel really guilty there for a minute. Okay.
Man, I started off weak last week, and you are ending on a low note.
I'm crashing right now. Okay, that's the way it is. Folks, thank you again. We hope you have a great weekend. We'll be post-game later that night as we were last weekend. Seth, enjoy yourself. And, get out of the office. Maybe not.
Save me from this life, people! Subscribe to the Minnesota Chiefs fan Substack. Save me! I'm still in the office. It's 7:18 at night. All right.
Oh, good Lord. All right, everybody have a good night. We'll see you next time.